Hi everybody, welcome back to our This Is How We Grow personal growth group. As you know, I'm Dr. Christina Hibbert, and we are working on season 2 of our personal growth group, and we're working today on lesson 2. We're going to focus a little bit more on that overcoming phase I was talking about in lesson 1, as we then move through the overcoming phase into the becoming and the flourishing phase as we continue to look for more meaning in our life and uncover and discover and fulfill our true life's purpose. That's why we're here. And I want to start today with a quote from This Is How We Grow to kind of set the stage. This is in chapter 8, page 76 of This Is How We Grow. And it starts with a quote, one of my favorites, by Socrates. He says, "Beware the barrenness of the busy life." And this is something that I've kept in my mind for so long, because isn't it such a busy life? And it's so easy for us to get caught up in busy. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. So to continue on here, I write, "Living life in the fast lane may get us where we think we want to be in a hurry, but how much do we miss as we fly on by? Everyone I know is busy, including me. There are mouths to feed, bills to pay, things to get done, and hopefully some fun added into the mix. It's not a bad thing to be busy, it's part of life. But how often do we fail to see life's beauty and richness simply because we're going too fast? The slower path is the path of patience, and the gift of the path of patience is the opportunity to see. Slowing down, getting still, breathing deeply, and taking a good long look enables us to see our gifts, lessons, weaknesses, and strengths, and to choose to appreciate and learn from them. Sometimes life circumstances knock us out of our fast lane, but more often than not, slowing down is a choice we make with conscious effort. As psychiatrist and best-selling author Judith Orloff writes, "Calm is something you must go after, whereas stress comes after you. It is precisely when stress is coming after us that we most need to slow down and see." And that's what today is going to be about, focusing on helping us to get out of that busy mode and to work on slowing down and seeing what's really going on inside of us. I want to share a quote now from Carl Jung, who's one of my favorite psychologists, and I love his writings. He says, "Your visions will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." So think of that. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. And of course, as we're discussing meaning, purpose, your life's mission, we need to have both of those things, don't we? First, we need to dream. And a lot of our life's purpose, our mission, and the meaning in our life has to do with fulfilling our dreams and understanding what they are and looking outside and seeing, what might I like to have from life? What are my desires? What are my hopes? What are my dreams? But that second part is so crucial. Who looks inside awakes. We can only awaken to the true purpose of our life, to the true meaning of each day, if we are paying attention and if we're listening inside. And that's really what we're going to focus on today, that internal focus that we need so that we can overcome. And when I'm talking about overcoming, well, first of all, I want to suggest that you might want to go listen to or re-listen to or rewatch lesson 8 from season 1. Season 1, lesson 8 of this group. If you want to go find that video on my YouTube channel, then you can go look there. You can go back and you can email me if you don't have the link. Anyway, go find that video and rewatch it, because I talked a lot in that video about overcoming and the blocks to our personal growth and how there are so many things that actually stop us from growing. And we need to know what those things are. We need to pay attention, and how we also really need to practice self-care. And I was going to talk today about self-care, but I really think I covered it pretty thoroughly in that last lesson, in lesson 8. So if you want to know more about specific strategies related to self-care, I talked about the nurse model. I talked about the 3 layers of self-care. If you didn't learn that yet or you haven't heard that, go back to lesson 8 and watch that. Because today what I want to do is focus on, yes, self-care, but I really want to focus on self-care in the sense of overcoming our self-doubt, believing in ourselves, taking care of ourselves, and looking deeply inward so that we can understand the truth about ourselves and to accept that. And that is really loving and taking care of ourselves. If we can believe in ourselves and believe that we're worth looking toward, a meaning and purpose in our life, that we are worth having a great purpose here on this earth, right? So today we're going to talk about self-awareness, which is the first step in the pyramid of self-worth. I also talked about that last year, I believe, in lesson 7. So if you haven't seen lesson 7, go watch that one as well. But we're really going to go into that more, that pyramid of self-worth, where we need self-awareness, self-acceptance, self-love in order to feel self-worth, because self-worth is such a huge part of your life's meaning and purpose. I mean, we really can't fulfill our life's purpose without true self-worth, without knowing who we really are and being able to see and willing to see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the beautiful in ourselves. And so that's what we're going to kind of focus on today. Overcoming self-doubt and this myth of self-esteem, which I think also gets in our way, and just practicing self-awareness. So let's get started, because it's a shorter lesson today. First, we must believe we are worthy. We must believe we are worthy of having a divine purpose. We must desire greater meaning in our life and believe that we are worthy of having that meaning in our life, right? So first, I want to talk about, who are you? So last session in lesson 1 of season 2, I asked a lot of questions, right? So if you've done that already, then great. And if you haven't, you probably want to go back and redo lesson 1. But I asked you a lot of questions, and these questions were to start thinking about, where am I right now in my life, and what am I looking for in this next year of growth? And I also asked you to create your life's vision, to start looking ahead, to think, what am I really trying to accomplish out of my life? Like the bigger picture, to get the bigger picture, right? And so now today I want to kind of go back down into the smaller picture, the personal deep insights inside of you. And first I want to ask you that question, who am I? So ask yourself that, who am I? And this is something I hope that if you don't have a ready answer for, that you can write it down, post it somewhere in your home, keep it on your phone, and just kind of ponder this for the next month as you work through some of the ideas in this lesson. Who am I really? What I want to say is, you're more than you think you are. Okay, so a lot of people have different answers for this question. They might answer by saying, I'm a mom, or I'm a wife, or I'm a teacher. So that those are answering by their roles, or maybe answering by their personality. I'm funny, or I'm an optimist, or I'm negative, or I'm depressed. So they might answer by personality traits, or by things that happen to us, like our mental health state, or our physical health state, the way that we are in the world. So some others might answer by saying, I don't really know who I am, and that's something I'm trying to figure out. And that's good. Any of those answers are fine. Whatever you answer is fine, but I want you to hopefully learn today that you're more than what you think. So first, we need to understand that, number 1, we are not how we look, or how we feel, or how we think. Okay? We are more than how we look and what we do. And it's easier to understand that when we look at someone else. So if you look at me, I'll use myself as an example. You might think I look a certain way, or act a certain way, or that I am a certain way, or but I'm none of those things, really. I might act that way, and that might be part of who I am in the world, but I am greater than those things. So you can't just look at me and say, well, you are someone who dresses this way, and that means that you are this way, right? That's not true. So when we look at other people, it's easy to see, well, we can't say who they are based on what we see them do in the world, and this little tiny picture we get of, this vast soul that they are, right? And we certainly can't do the same for ourselves. We can't tell ourselves that we are what we think or what we feel, but it certainly feels that way sometimes. It does. It feels like, especially if you're in a place of grief or depression or stress or just overwhelmed or busyness, it can feel like that is part of your identity. And I want to say about busyness, I mentioned that at the beginning because I want us to really focus and see. I want to see ourselves, I want us to slow down. And I think a big part of it is that we have to slow down to do that. So you're slowing down by taking this lesson, and you're giving yourself time. You're giving some of that time to you to help you understand yourself and to grow. And that's so important. And, I've learned a valuable lesson about busyness lately. My life has been on such a whirlwind for so many years that I just didn't realize how busyness had kind of become my identity and my way of being, and people would always say, oh, you're so busy. And I'd be like, oh, yes, I am. And it was kind of the way it was the way it was, right? And so, but this summer, after, going through some more grief after my friend had died, I quit everything. I stopped everything. And it wasn't until a few months of this trying to like slow down and not do that I started to be really bored first. And I wanted to add things to my life to make it more interesting. And that's what I normally do. When I start to get bored, I just add more things to do. But I didn't this time. And after a couple of months, I was talking with some friends last week and describing this, how I felt like, oh my gosh, I have weaned myself from busyness. I've come off of it like a drug. And busyness can be a drug. And for so many years, my life was so busy. And most of it was just the way my life was. It wasn't even invited, but then sooner or later it became like I'm inviting the busyness, and then you just get hooked on it. So I just want to say that, and I'm writing a blog post about busyness, so you can find that on my website if that's something you struggle with. But we need to slow down and realize we are not what we do, and we're not how we look, and we're not what we feel and what we think, okay? Also, we are not our roles. You are not your roles. Yes, you might be a mother or a wife or a sister, a friend. You might be a teacher, a speaker, whatever you may do. But you are not those things. You are not those things. That's what you do. That's not who you are, okay? And certainly those things that we do are part of who we are, and they certainly influence how we feel about ourselves and who we think we are. And they come out of who we really are, for sure, because we do the things we love for a reason. And hopefully what you do in your roles are things that you love and that you've chosen because you want them. But we are not those things, right? We are more than that. And then, like I said earlier, we are not what we do. And it's very easy to get caught up in doing, and believing that that's who we are. So, in this line of work that I do, I know a lot of people who are very caught up in being the psychologist or the expert on something or the person who teaches, and that's not true. I'm not that. That's not who I am. Hopefully some of who I am shines through when I do this, but we are not what we do. Okay? So these are very important. So again, I ask you, who are you then? If you're not all those things, if all those things are stripped away, then who are you really? That's the important question, and it can only be answered truly with your soul, with your heart. You can answer with your head, which I think helps us to understand. We can say, we can list personality traits. We can list things we love. We can list things that people have said about us, good or bad. And that stuff can help us understand some of who and how we are in this world. But it's not all of it. We are deeper than that. We are a soul. We've always existed. We will always exist, and there's so much more to us that that's already here that we just need to uncover instead of going out and looking for it out here. So 2 things I want you to do when it comes to who am I is, first I want you to focus on the head part, understanding who you are with your head. Then I want you to focus on understanding who you are with your heart. Now, of course, this is such a big topic. I could easily write several books on it, right? And who knows, maybe someday I will. But for now, we're doing a very short lesson on it. It's just something I want you to think about, because understanding who you really are and that you're more than what meets the eye is the first step in understanding how to find that deeper meaning and purpose in your life. Okay, because you can't find that out here by just going and doing a bunch of things. That's not how it's found. It's something that we have to slow down to see. Okay, it's something deeper and meaningful that you already have that we have to uncover and find in here. So for number 1, this is part of your assignment. So for this part of it, number 1, I want you to grab your journal or your notebook or your phone or wherever you write, get some quiet space, and I want you to start a who am I list and a who am I not list. This is using your head. So who am I? And write down lists, traits, personality, things that people have said about you, things that you believe, values that you have, all those kinds of things. Who am I? Who am I not? These are things, I'm definitely not this. Like, I'm definitely not a clean person, or I'm definitely not a great gardener, which is obviously one of mine. I'm definitely not, I'm not very hopeful right now, and I wish I were, or something like that, okay? So start your 2 lists. Don't judge, though. This is very important. Don't judge your list. Just list. Just get still, get quiet, listen, and then list out, who am I? And this is something we're going to add to as we build up. Each of these lessons is going to build on each other until we get to the end, when hopefully you have a deeper understanding of your life's purpose and how to find greater meaning in each day. Okay, so keep that list. Then we want to do something with your heart. Okay, and I am including this time a worksheet, and you can find this on my website at drchristinahibbert.com if you didn't receive it in the email for this lesson. But there's a worksheet that I have with lists of words, all these different words. And this is just a way to kind of see how you feel about yourself from the more feeling level and not from just your head, okay? So what I want you to do is you take these words, and it has all kinds of crazy words, like, well, good and not so good words. Like you sit in front of a mirror quietly, and you don't have to sit in front of a mirror, but I think it helps. You sit in front of a mirror and you say, I am blank, whatever the word is. Okay, so I am shy, I am loudmouthed, I am positive, I am negative, I am hopeful, I am fearful, I am rude. Okay, so there's all these different words. And when you say those words, I want you just to feel. I don't want you to think about it, just to feel. And if you have any kind of reaction to the word at all, like if you say, I am rude, and you're like, I am not rude, I'm so not rude. Okay, mark it, circle it. Okay, or if you have a reaction like, oh, yeah, I probably am that. Okay, circle it. Whatever kind of reaction. Many words will have no reaction. You'll say it and it won't mean anything to you. But those that have any kind of a feeling, any kind of a response, either positive or negatively, circle it. Okay? Then we can go back to your list later and look through that I am list and start to go, why did these words have a pull on me? Is this something that I haven't yet discovered or embraced about myself? Or is this something that I definitely know I need to work on and I just haven't yet? You know, it's part of getting us to that self-acceptance phase, which we're going to work on next. Okay, so work on that exercise, these two exercises, and this will get you started on the first part of this lesson, which is who am I? Second, we need to practice self-awareness. Okay, and last time with all those questions that I gave you, that was definitely starting with self-awareness. You're definitely being aware by asking yourself where you are now and what you need right now from your life, right? Well, let's now go a little bit deeper into that. And I want to say that self-awareness can be difficult for many of us. We might be aware in many, many ways, but in certain areas, nope, I don't want to see that about myself. Nope, I don't want to understand that. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to feel that. Okay? So what we're trying to do is break down those barriers and start to just be aware of what we feel and what we want in our life, right? So that's what we're trying to focus on. Now, I need to tell you that self-awareness, therefore, does take courage. And so if you think you're not courageous, don't let that word scare you. You definitely are. All it means is that you have to have the courage to go, okay, I'd rather see and know all this about myself than to keep hidden and to never get to that purpose that I have in life, to never reach my full potential. Okay, that's what really we're working on. We want to reach our potential. Well, you can't really reach it if you don't see what there is already going on and what there is to work with, right? But the good part of self-awareness is it dispels the fear. So, you know, as the Bible says, the truth shall set you free. It's so true. If you don't see things about yourself, then it's easy to let them become like monsters in a closet. Like, what's in there? I don't know. And, you know, if you start to practice self-awareness, it's like finding that the monsters in your closet are really like the guys from Monsters, Inc. and they're friends and they're your buddies, you know, it's okay. So we need to expose the things in ourselves and be aware of them in order to reduce the fear about those things, okay? The other part is that self-awareness can be exciting. I mean, I think it's pretty exciting to see things about myself, even if I don't like them at first, because it gives me the chance to work on them, to change them, to improve, to be better. And to me, that matters more than protecting myself from things I'm afraid of. Okay, so you have to decide what matters more to you right now. And you don't have to go fast with this. You don't have to see everything at once. Just little by little. Doing these exercises I just mentioned is a good way. It starts to help you understand, who am I? And, you know, I am this, or I think I'm this, or I've always thought I was this, but I guess I'm not. And get you thinking about that whole question. And that is part of self-awareness. That's really what it is. So when what we add to this is, you know, you work on your list and keep adding to your I am lists and I am not lists, okay? Just imagine that you're a detective and you're trying to explore and gather as much information as possible. Pretend that you're somebody else even, that if you were looking at somebody else and you were to sit and make I am and I am not lists for them, how would you do that? And to do that kind of objectively. And that's what I'm hoping you'll do. And continue your list to help you practice this self-awareness, okay? Okay, so the third part of today's lesson is to ask, how am I? Now, I'm not asking like, how am I feeling and how am I doing? That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking, how are you? Like, how are you in the world? How do you behave? So Emily Dickinson once said, behavior is what a man does, not what he thinks, feels, or believes. So what I want you to be looking at is, what do you do? How do you act in the life? How are you in your relationships? How are you, right? It doesn't matter what you think about how you should be, or what you believe about yourself, or what you believe about other people and how they feel about you. What I want to know is the truth. Like, really, really, how are you in the world? So a lot of what I've been discussing today comes straight from my new book, Who Am I Without You, that'll be released in March 2015 and is available already on Amazon for pre-order. And I want to quote to you a little bit from that to explain a little bit about what I mean by how are you. So this says, what do you like or dislike about how you interact with others or how you are in your relationships? So that's question 1. How do people perceive you? Question 2. Question 3 is, what would you like to change or improve about these things? Now, understanding how you are in the world is great information for helping you see and break old, unhealthy patterns and discover the true you. It's another way we can practice self-awareness. And that's why we're discussing this right now. So I'm going to continue on to read from this chapter, which is chapter 26, Ask How Am I? What I'm asking you to do here is the epitome of vulnerability. Going back to look at yourself and your relationships with an honest, open heart. However, vulnerability is the only lens through which you can see yourself clearly. I'm going to repeat that again. Vulnerability is the only lens through which you can see yourself clearly. You must see the truth of how you behave with others in order to understand what is working and what needs work. We're not trying to see who is at fault for things. We're trying to help you discover more elements of who you have been in the past and who you desire to become. So hopefully that makes sense and explains why looking at how you are in the world in your relationships with other people can give you great insight into your potential, who you desire to become, and can help you kind of clarify what's working and what's not working. So when we're talking about this, what I want you to do is first you need to understand that this is something where we really need to look at what others think and say about us. We don't always need that. And I mentioned earlier about the myth of self-esteem. I say that self-esteem is a myth because it's based on how we feel and what we think and what we do and who we seem to be to other people, what other people say about us. And so when it comes to self-esteem, it's really not very helpful because it's all based on all this stuff out here. It's based on this kind of persona that we've created, this little me that I am out here versus the real me, the true me that I am in here. And that's self-worth. Self-worth is based on deeper, more meaningful things. It's based on your relationship with God. It's based on seeing yourself as He sees you and understanding that. And that's what we're really seeking here. So when we're talking about how am I though, this is one time where I do want you to listen a little bit to what other people say, because you can learn a lot from what others say and think about you. And it doesn't mean that we want to take that and let it make us feel bad. I get criticisms a lot. I get a lot of positive responses, but I do get criticisms, especially since I've written this book and I have reviews online and things like that. And when I get a negative criticism, it stings. I don't like to hear it. But I do try to look at it and say, is there any truth in this? Is there any truth in this? And I try to take the truth and learn from it, and then I literally delete and let go of everything else. I mean, if I get nasty emails, I try to take what I need to learn and I delete it. Okay, and luckily I don't get a lot, but it hurts when that happens, right? So we want to look at how you are with people, and here are some things that you can do. Again, quoting from Who Am I Without You? So how are you with people? With your friends, neighbors, family members, with your coworkers, church or community members, with your intimate relationships. Do you tend to get lost in other people? Do you tend to dominate relationships? Do you always put others' needs first? Or are you more self-focused, forsaking others' needs for your own? There are all kinds of attributes we can only see through the lens of our relationships. So while we need the lens of vulnerability, we also need the lens of our relationships and being willing to be vulnerable enough to learn from what we've done there. Okay? I like to say, again quoting, I like to say that if I lived on a desert island alone, I would be a pretty amazing human being. I would never hurt anybody with my words or be pushed to my limits by, say, a screaming child or 2 or 3 or 6. I would never unintentionally lose it with someone I care about. I would feel like a good person, but I would also be all alone. No one to love, no one to celebrate with, no one to push me to be better. We need other people. Looking through the lens of our relationships can give incredible insight into who we have the potential to become. Okay? So vulnerability is the first key, and then looking into the lens of our relationships and how we are with other people in the world is the second. And these all help us to practice self-awareness. Okay? So, in closing, I want you to focus on these 3 things. Number 1, who am I? That question of who am I? And to do those exercises that I mentioned and we'll include in the email for the group. Number 2, practice self-awareness. As often as you can, practice self-awareness. When you're doing something, when you get feedback in any sort of way, ask, what can I learn from this? And try to be open and see, and then write down in your journal or notebook what you see, as well as doing those exercises, that who am I list and who am I not list. And finally, ask how am I? And be willing to be vulnerable in your life, to talk to people in your life and ask them how they see you, to be willing to look at your relationships. And there are a few exercises that go along with this. And you don't have to do all of the exercises, but if you want to, certainly do them all. They all are part of understanding our potential, our life's purpose, our life's mission. So it's all helpful. But I don't want you to feel stressed or overwhelmed. So do what feels good to you. So what I want you to do is, number 1, to talk with people who know and love you best. So this is the assignment for part 3. How am I? Talk with the people who know you and ask them how they perceive you. And just have a discussion. Just say, what do you see as my strengths and my weaknesses? Ask somebody that's really close to you and just talk with them, okay? And then take notes and write down and write about it in your journal and process and understand what they said and try to really, again, ask, what can I learn from this? And then second, and this is not for the faint of heart, but I've done this before and it's extremely valuable. You select 3 close friends or family members, people who know you really well, and you ask them to list the 3 things that they most admire about you and the 3 things that they least admire about you. Now, this is very interesting because it does have something to say about them too. But it can definitely give you insight into what people think of you. And you might agree or disagree with what they say, but you then at least can be aware of sort of how you're coming off to some of the people closest in your life. And they're probably going to not even want to answer that, because most people, when I ask them, are like, oh, I don't want to say anything negative. But I said, please do, because I want to learn. And you know what? It was a great lesson for me and for them. So try that too. All right. So hopefully I have plenty to work on this month in self-awareness and figuring out who am I really. I would love, love, love for you to post on Facebook, on our Facebook group, if you're a member of there, to post what you're thinking, what you're discovering, how you feel about who you are, self-awareness, all these things. I really want to get some discussion going. Or to email me with questions or post on the videos or the blogs. There's a whole series on this self-awareness, on self-worth pyramid on my blog at drchristinahibbert.com. If you look under self-worth as the tab, or you type it into a search, you'll find the pyramid of self-worth, a whole great article on self-awareness, which I'll include the link for in our email. Otherwise, please be willing to, just open yourself up this month and see what you find. Again, it can be exciting if you look at it that way, to say, I'm gonna learn something about myself this month. And that can be exciting because it's a great step, an important first step in really getting to your potential and your purpose. Okay? All right, so I will see you next month, everybody. Take care, and until then, I hope you choose to grow every single day. Bye.